My name is John Carter. I'm 38, a software engineer living in Seattle. I like things to be clear, controllable, especially when it comes to finances. In a chaotic world, numbers are the only things that don't lie. That morning, while preparing documents for a mortgage application, I opened the Credit Karma app to check my credit score like I always do. It took just a few seconds before I froze. Alert credit score dropped by 47 points. I pulled up the Experian report. Personal loan, $49, $200 issuing bank, First Trust, Idaho. Date: opened 4 months ago. Status: active borrower, John Carter. I read it 3 times. It felt like someone had poured ice water down the back of my neck. My heart pounded. I had to sit down. Part of my brain went blank. The rest raced in a frenzy. I had never been to Idaho, never applied for a personal loan, and definitely never signed up for anything close to 50 grand in debt. I opened my Google Drive and dug up old insurance documents. The signature, it was mine, but not the version of my handwriting I use when I'm alert and deliberate. It was slanted, rushed, tired-looking, the exact kind of signature I remember scribbling one February night. I remember it vividly. Sarah had dropped a stack of papers on my desk while I was deep in code, just some car insurance forms. "Sign at the bottom," she said, placing a pen beside them. "I've got to run to the post office." I signed without reading. She smiled, kissed my cheek. "Thanks, babe." Now, that kiss tastes different in my memory. I checked the loan's registered address, our current apartment in Capitol Hill. The email wasn't mine, but it looked oddly familiar. Then it hit me. It was an old address Sarah once used for Facebook recovery. I remembered because I helped her reset her password years ago. That detail alone shattered any last hope that this was some random clerical error. I called the First Trust branch in Idaho. The woman on the phone was polite at first, then wary when I said I had no idea about the loan. "Mr. Carter, we have a signature match on file, and all verifications were processed through the listed address. If you're claiming you didn't apply, this may be a case of identity fraud." I hung up when my hand started trembling. I printed the entire credit report, laid it out on the table, then opened our shared bank account. 3 monthly payments, $412 each, had been going out to an unfamiliar name. That account wasn't in our previous payee list. I checked our emails, nothing. Sarah had turned off transaction notifications, meticulous, suspiciously so. I got up and walked to the kitchen. Sarah was chopping carrots for her usual chicken soup, wearing that beige sweater she loved on chilly days. She turned to me and smiled. "Don't forget your stomach meds. Okay, I've noticed you've been staying up late a lot." I nodded, but I was watching closely. She didn't meet my eyes. Her voice was a bit quicker than usual, and her left hand, the one holding the knife, was trembling slightly. I asked casually, "Hey, do you know anything about this $412 transfer that goes out monthly to someone named Gilmore? Just noticed it in the app." She paused just for a beat, then smiled. "Oh, that's probably my gym membership. They changed management companies. I'll check it later. No worries." I nodded again, watched her go back to chopping vegetables like nothing had happened. But from that moment on, I knew nothing was normal anymore. That night, I lay beside her, just like every night before. She fell asleep fast, her breathing steady. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my head a mess of questions. Why? What debt? Why didn't she tell me? Why my name? I thought about our wedding photo from Kyoto, standing beneath the cherry blossoms. That smile. It used to mean peace. Now it made my gut twist. Sarah used to be an accountant. She knew verification protocols. She knew the loopholes. She'd know exactly which banks were most lenient with online applications. I thought about confronting her right then and there, but I stopped myself. I needed real proof. I needed to know how long this had been going on, and most of all, I needed to get her out of her comfort zone, out of the routine where she could hide behind her perfect, curated facade. Then an idea hit me. Sarah had always wanted to go to the Maldives. The honeymoon we postponed because of work. She still saved pictures of those turquoise beaches and brought it up whenever a travel ad popped up. Maybe that's where I'd find the truth. 1 week after that life-altering morning, I had all the evidence I needed. There was no doubt anymore. Sarah was behind it all. I sat in our apartment in Seattle, the loan documents and transaction logs laid out neatly across the wooden table. I had printed them, annotated them in red ink, every line, every dot. The numbers were no longer just suspicious. They were damning. Now, there was only one thing left to do, ask her directly. That evening, Sarah came home after a nail appointment with her friends. I asked her to sit in the living room. She looked a little surprised, but smiled as she tossed her purse onto the couch. "What's going on, babe?" she asked, tilting her head gently like she always did. I slid the Experian report toward her. For a moment, confusion flickered across her face, then quickly faded into a practiced smile. "What's this loan about?" I asked. My voice wasn't raised, but it was cold. She flipped through the pages slowly. When she reached the signature, she paused, hand resting on her chest. "You think I did this to you, Sarah? The loan is in my name. It lists our address. I never signed anything. The contact email is your old recovery Gmail, the one I helped you reset. Don't play games," she sighed. No tears. Just a soft shake of the head, then leaned back against the couch. "John, you know I've been trying to handle the finances for both of us. I didn't want to bother you with the little stuff." "Little stuff?" $49,000 is little. It was for us. For our down payment on the house. I didn't use it for myself. My fists clenched. My brain screamed at me not to be manipulated. But my heart still faltered at the look in the eyes of the woman I once loved so completely. Even then, I knew something wasn't adding up. If it was for us, why didn't you tell me? Why fake my signature? Sarah jumped to her feet. "You always blow everything out of proportion. You monitor every account like a freak. I'm exhausted." It was the first time I had ever heard her yell like that. The anger didn't come from guilt. It came from being caught. She grabbed her phone and started texting furiously. I didn't stop her. I didn't have to. I already knew what she was doing, rallying the troops. And I was right. That night, her mother called me 3 times. Messages from Sarah's best friend, Leah, came in rapid fire. "John, you're being too harsh. She's just trying to help." Even Tom, our mutual friend since college, texted me, "Bro, don't blow this up. If you still want to save the marriage, let the money go. It's just money." I felt surrounded, as if I was the cold, controlling husband with no compassion. No one asked me the one question that mattered. Did she forge your signature? Sarah had slipped so easily into victim mode. She told her mother I ran the house like a boot camp, that I checked every purchase, never gave her space. And the terrifying part was, her lies were just close enough to the truth to sound believable. And me, I only had numbers, paperwork, cold, logical proof no one wanted to hear. I started doubting myself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this wasn't betrayal. But every time that thought crept in, I'd look at that forged signature, at the fake email, and I'd remember this wasn't a mistake. This was fraud. One night, I tried asking her again, gently, "Sarah, do you ever think what you did was wrong?" She was putting on lotion, glanced at me through the mirror, and said casually, "I think I did what you never had the guts to do, to keep all this going." I stayed silent, but something in me shut off for good. No tears, no remorse. Just a woman who justified forging her husband's identity in the name of love. I knew I couldn't go on like this, but I also knew if I exposed her now, I'd lose everything. She had already painted me as the control freak, and she had a crowd ready to believe it. I couldn't win here, not in a place where people had already chosen sides with their hearts, not their heads. I needed a new setting, one without her allies, without the whispers, without the stares. And then Maldives came to mind again, Sarah's dream destination. She had mentioned it recently, almost casually. If we ever had a second honeymoon, I'd want it to be the Maldives. I looked at her one night as she scrolled through photos of beach resorts, that wistful look in her eyes. I smiled. "Let's go," I said, "just a week. Maybe it's time to reset." She turned, stunned for a second, then grinned wide and threw her arms around me. "I knew you still loved me." I held her, kissed her cheek. But in my mind, the plan was already set. This wouldn't be a honeymoon, it would be an unmasking, and she wouldn't see it coming. After that night, Sarah thought she'd won. She believed she was the queen of this marriage chessboard, and I was just a naive pawn blinded by love and too ashamed of being called controlling to fight back. But I started playing a new role, the forgiving husband. I made breakfast omelets, fresh squeezed orange juice, cinnamon toast, exactly the way she liked it. I left little post-it notes by her keys. "Have a great day?" I hugged her when I got home, suggested weekend dinners, even made reservations at that Italian place she'd once mentioned, and I had always forgotten. Sarah softened. Her eyes lost some of their edge. She began saying things like, "I know I was a little harsh back then, but you scared me. And we're going to be okay, right?" I nodded. "Of course. We just need time for ourselves." But in my mind, I was recording her every word and moved not with a phone or a hidden camera, but with the memory of someone betrayed waiting for the right moment to strike. That's when I started building the plan. First, the setting, the Maldives. Not because it's paradise, but because it's the perfect place for her to let her guard down. Sarah always dreamed of going turquoise water, overwater bungalows, candlelit dinners. She had hundreds of pictures saved on Pinterest. "One day," she'd always say, "I found a 5-star resort with private villas and tight security. I booked an isolated bungalow in Mafushi, remote enough that if she wanted to run, there'd be nowhere to go." Next, I prepped the legal side. I didn't call my lawyer. I called Robert McConnell, my father's attorney, a man who'd handled dozens of high-asset divorces, the one who got my dad out of a false claim from an old business partner. I sent him copies of everything: credit reports, loan agreements, the fake email address, the bank transfers. After reviewing the files, Robert asked one question. "Do you have proof she knew she was impersonating you?" "Not yet," I said. "But I'm about to—" He paused, then said, "Send me the full plan, and make sure you don't violate any privacy laws under Washington or federal statutes if you're planning to record anything." So I studied the law for 3 nights straight. I learned exactly what I needed and how to obtain it legally. I also reached out to a tech-savvy friend from college. He built me a discreet backup app for her phone, something that would sync all data to a secure cloud drive, including hidden folders. No jailbreak, no rooting, just a simple install. Then I staged the perfect excuse. I suggested we go shopping for the trip: sunscreen, flowy dresses, swimwear. At the store, I handed her a brand new phone, just a gift. I said, "For beach pics. I'm worried you'll drop your old one in the water." She hugged me, called me the dream husband back from the dead. I smiled, softly, slowly, thinking you haven't even seen my best performance yet. She started telling Leah about our second honeymoon. Leah messaged me, "I'm so happy for you guys. You really worked through it." I replied with a single emoji, "It is okay." The trip was booked Saturday, 7:00 a.m., Seattle to Doha, then a connecting flight to Malé. Total travel time 24 hours. I booked business class. Sarah cried when the email confirmation came in. "I can't believe you really forgave me," she whispered, eyes glassy as she curled into my chest. I brushed her hair gently and said, "No one's perfect." "Sarah, but I think what matters is that we still want to try." Inside, I was counting down. I don't call this revenge. It's not cruel enough, not sharp enough. I call it reclaiming the truth. I don't want her in prison. I don't want to drag her name through the mud with friends, family, or the media. I don't need that. I just want her to know with absolute clarity that she was wrong, and that the man she thought was her oblivious, controllable husband saw everything. I won't yell. I won't curse. I won't throw anything. I'll simply place the truth in front of her, in a place thousands of miles from home, with no one around, no escape routes. For now, I'll hold her hand as we board the plane, playing the role of the perfect husband. We'll fly to paradise, and she'll never see it coming. That paradise is where the game ends. The flight took nearly a full day. As the plane descended into Malé, Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder, her fingers gently entwined with mine like nothing had ever gone wrong. She had no idea that inside my carry-on was an encrypted USB drive holding every piece of data copied from her old phone. Only 2 people could access it, me and Robert, my lawyer. Oceania Resort picked us up by private boat. Our overwater bungalow sat on stilts in the middle of a pristine lagoon, each villa isolated, linked by a winding wooden bridge hovering above emerald water. The sun was soft, the breeze calm, the scenery almost too perfect. Sarah couldn't hide her excitement. She recorded every angle, boomeranged for Instagram, tagged She Reignite. Love, second honeymoon. I appeared in some of the footage, 2 sunglasses on, a small smile, my arm around her waist like a man reborn in love, forgiven and forgiving. But behind that smile, the wheels had already started turning. That first night, I booked a couple's massage. While Sarah changed in the bathroom, I connected her gift phone, the one I'd installed tracking software, onto my laptop. It took just 3 minutes to extract photos and recently deleted files. In a sloppily encrypted folder called Private, password protected with my birthday, I found 6 short videos and a string of email screenshots from First Trust Bank. One video knocked the wind out of me. Sarah was sitting in front of what looked like a bank representative on Zoom, smiling sweetly as she spoke, in a voice I barely recognized. "My husband isn't great with paperwork. I'll handle everything. Just need him to sign the last page. I'll walk him through it." I paused the video. Her face froze on screen, eyes full of calculated calm, a gentle smile sharpened by cold resolve. I sat still in the bungalow's dim light from the bathroom. Sarah was giggling, playing soft music. She had no idea her secrets were starting to collapse. On the second day, we took a traditional Maldivian cooking class. Sarah wore a flowing white dress, her hair loosely tied back. She laughed with the local chef as she tasted mashuni, then turned to feed me a spoonful, her eyes shining. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed I was the luckiest man on earth. She showed no signs of guilt, no flicker of doubt in her gaze, not a single misplaced breath. Everything was seamless, as if her conscience had never even rippled. That third night, I took her out to the floating restaurant at the end of the bridge. Full moon, calm breeze, golden lights flickering on the water. I ordered her favorite Italian wine, the same one I hadn't bought in 3 years. Sarah looked at me, eyes soft with emotion. "You know," she said, placing her hand over mine, "I never thought we'd get this chance again." I squeezed her hand, nodded slowly, and I think, after everything, I was right to keep believing in you. I didn't know what that meant. Was it remorse buried under layers of pretense, or another veiled power play I didn't respond? I just pulled out my phone and handed it to her. "I have something I want you to see." Sarah frowned but took the phone. The video started playing the moment her fingers touched the screen. There she was on Zoom, speaking the words that now floated through the warm Maldivian night. "My husband isn't great with paperwork." Sarah froze. Her hands began to tremble. Her eyes lost focus. When the video ended, she looked up at me, eyes wide, lips pressed tight, every muscle in her face straining to stay in control. "John, I cut her off. You don't have to say anything. I don't want excuses. I want the truth." She opened her mouth to protest, maybe to cry out, but I stayed calm, my voice steady and low. I know everything. 6 videos, 3 emails, transaction history. I even have the recording of your confirmation call with the bank. Sarah buried her face in her hands and, for the first time, truly cried. I didn't know what else to do. You're always so careful, so rigid. I just wanted a real life, a home, some freedom. I was going to pay it back, I swear. By impersonating your husband, I asked my tone flat, but cutting enough to slice through any justification. I didn't think it would spiral like this. She sobbed. I just wanted what we kept putting off. I stared at her for a long while, said nothing, then stood up, grabbed my phone, and walked away, leaving her at the dinner table, her face streaked with tears, lit by the moonlight over the Maldives. That night, she didn't come back to the room until nearly 1 a.m. When she finally did, I had already turned off the lights and lay silently in bed, but my eyes were open, staring at the wooden ceiling. I wasn't angry anymore. There was only one question echoing through me. Why do people do the cruelest things to the ones they once claimed to love the most? I didn't have the answer yet. But I knew one thing for certain tomorrow. I wouldn't just be the man who held the truth, I'd be the man who decided what came next. The next morning, Sarah woke with puffy eyes. She didn't say a word as I handed her a cup of Americano, usually her favorite, with a dash of cream. Today, she didn't even take a sip. During breakfast, she just sat quietly, staring out at the ocean. No more videos, no more laughter, no more odd couple goals. I didn't speak either. No comfort, no accusations. I wanted her to sit in that silence thick with truths acknowledged, but not yet fully faced. Around noon, I received an email from Robert McConnell. Subject line, ready when you are. I stood, left the bungalow, and walked the white sand shore until I found the resort's tiny beachfront bar, the spot with the strongest Wi-Fi. There. I opened my laptop and logged into the secure cloud where I had stored every bit of data from Sarah's phone photos, videos, audio recordings, emails, screenshots of recently deleted messages. There was one audio file I hadn't played closely yet. File name FT call to 12FEB. I clicked play. Sarah's voice came through, clear and calm. Yes, that's right. John Carter, date of birth, June 12, 1986. Social Security number 3421. I'm handling this on his behalf. He's very busy and not great with finances. There was a pause. A faint voice from the bank rep asked a follow-up. Sarah responded, light and smooth. He's already signed. I can send a scanned copy right after this call. If you need to verify, it matches his insurance documents. I hit pause. My heart pounded, not from shock, but certainty. This was the final nail, the lock on the truth, and the key to walking away from this deception for good. That evening, I reserved a private table beside the resort's infinity pool where sea and sky melted into one seamless horizon. I ordered her favorite charcoal-grilled steak for myself, just a glass of chilled white wine. Sarah appeared in a blush satin dress, the one I bought her 2 birthdays ago. She wore barely any makeup, just a hint of lip color to hide the exhaustion beneath. She sat down, her eyes wary. Do you have more to say? I slid a manila envelope onto the table. Neat. Unforced. She reached for it, pulled out Paige's loan statements, screenshots of the hidden folder on her phone, audio recordings, emails to the bank from her old backup account, the entire file, bound with a brass fastener, nothing missing. She stared at it for a long time, then spoke, her voice dry and cracked. What are you going to do with this? I didn't answer right away. I pulled a single sheet from my blazer pocket and placed it on the table. The divorce papers already signed and notarized. Alongside it, a provisional asset division agreement prepared by Robert. I don't want to drag this out, and I won't force you into court if you don't want that. But I will be filing, and if it comes to it, I'll submit all the evidence." Sarah froze. Her lips parted, then closed again. "You think people will believe you over me?" I smiled faintly. Documents don't ask to be believed. They just have to be true. She touched her wine glass but didn't drink, swallowed hard, and this time I felt nothing. "Did you ever love me, John?" I looked her straight in the eyes. I did, very much. But love can't save someone who's willing to use it as a weapon, and that broke her, for real this time. No performative tears, no wide eyes trying to hold the image of a victim, just a woman unraveling under the weight of what she knew she was about to lose. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel joy. Just clarity, like a long-lost order finally returning. "We still have 3 days here," I said, standing up. "You're free to stay. I booked separate flights. Use this time however you want to reflect or to plan what comes next. But when we're back in the U.S., everything will be handled through the law." I walked away. She didn't follow, didn't scream, didn't plead. Just the wind through the palms and the soft lap of waves against the pool's stone edge, a perfect soundtrack for an unspoken goodbye. That night, I walked the beach alone, no wedding ring, no regret. And for the first time in months, I slept soundly. Tomorrow, I would take the first step out of a life tainted by misplaced trust. I woke up at 6 a.m., while the Maldivian sky still wore a misty gray. I sat out on the balcony, listening to the waves lapping below and seagulls calling to each other in the distance. In my hand was the phone set to auto backup, quietly syncing every bit of data from the device Sarah had used throughout the trip to a private cloud server. I wasn't invading her privacy. I was protecting myself with the truth. I opened my email. Robert had sent an update. The subject line was blunt. "The file is strong enough to pursue criminal charges." Attached was a 17-page legal report, breaking down every charge: identity theft, financial fraud, forgery with intent to defraud. Robert listed the evidence: the Zoom call footage, the audio file confirming personal data, bank transactions made via a fake email, and her deliberate attempts to cover her tracks, deleting folders, wiping messages. Paired with the original credit report, it was enough for civil litigation, and strong enough to hand over to the district attorney's office if I chose. This wasn't a marriage dispute anymore. This was a pending criminal case, inside. Sarah was still asleep, curled beneath white linen sheets. Her hair was messy, her hand gripping the pillow like a child. If you only saw her like that, you'd never guess she had orchestrated an elaborate scheme of fraud in the name of the man she once called the love of her life. When she woke, I handed her a tablet. "Open it," I said. "The first page is something you need to read. The second is a choice." Sarah said nothing, but I saw her hand shake as her eyes scanned the first page. The charges, the numbers, the transcribed phone call, videos with subtitles, even the voice analysis report Robert had commissioned confirming that the caller to the bank was her. She swiped to the second page, the divorce settlement offer. I spoke slowly. "You sign this and we split the assets 60-40. I don't take it to court. I don't call the police. I don't go public. But if you refuse, I will hand everything over to the King County DA the moment we're back." She bit her lip, silent. Then finally spoke, her voice cracking. "Did you ever think, maybe I did it because I was scared I panicked? You're always so controlling, so rigid. I couldn't breathe, John." I didn't respond right away. But her words, blunt as a spoon, weren't sharp enough to sever empathy, just jagged enough to scrape what little trust remained. "I didn't force you to impersonate me, Sarah. No one made you memorize my SSN and recite it to a bank rep. No one handed you a pen that night. You did it, you chose it, now you own it." She lowered her head. Tears fell onto the tablet screen. I didn't think it would get this far. But it did, I said, and I never thought the woman I married would betray me like this. She went quiet, then whispered, "If I sign it, will you ever forgive me?" I looked her dead in the eye. No flinch, no hesitation. No. She nodded. Just once. No more arguing, no more spinning it back, no more lies. I left her there with the tablet and stepped outside. On my way to the front desk to confirm my early flight, I passed an Italian couple taking wedding photos on the dock. The bride in white, the groom kissing her forehead under the glow of golden hour. It was the kind of image I once believed I had, but now I knew marriage, to me, was no longer sanctuary. When I returned to the villa, Sarah was gone. The tablet sat on the table, the agreement signed. I sat down. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel relieved. I just felt still. So still. It was hollow. I texted Robert she signed, "Prepare to file when I'm back. No police. I'm choosing the quiet exit." He replied with just 2 words, "Wise move." That night, I didn't sleep in the room. I laid out a towel on the balcony lounge chair and stared at the stars. The waves thudded against the wooden stilts beneath me like a heartbeat slowly draining. And I realized real revenge isn't about breaking someone. It's about letting them live with what they've done, and knowing they lost the one person who still had enough faith left to forgive. 2 days later, Sarah and I left the Maldives on separate flights. But the night before our final dinner, that was when everything truly ended, I reserved a table by the shore in the exclusive lounge for premium guests, not for romance, but to make the ending clear, in a place so quiet that every word fell like a stone into still water. The lights were soft amber, the wine poured silently, the ocean tide came and went, a steady rhythm of unspoken goodbyes. Sarah arrived with a thin shawl over her shoulders. Her eyes were hollow, not red anymore, just empty, like someone who had finally woken up from a dream she wrote herself. She sat down. I poured the wine, didn't raise my glass. We looked at each other for a few seconds before she let out a tired breath. "You're really not going to say anything else?" I met her gaze. "You don't need more words. You signed, you understood." She let out a brittle laugh, dry and weightless. "You're always like this. Measuring everything by formulas, logic, credit scores, but you never could measure human emotion." I said nothing. I cut into the grilled swordfish on my plate, slowly, deliberately. She continued, "Do you even know why I did it? It wasn't about the money. I was scared of living the rest of my life with someone who never really saw me. You loved me like a project, a system to optimize. But I'm human, John. I'm fragile. I'm reckless sometimes." "And your solution," I asked evenly, "was identity theft, sharing my private information with a bank, setting up secret accounts to move money behind my back. That's your version of being fragile." Sarah tilted her face toward the sky, said nothing. After a while, she picked up her wine glass, took a sip. "From now on," I said, "my attorney will handle everything. You have 45 days to vacate the apartment in Seattle. The assets are split. I'm not asking for anything back except my dignity and peace." She gave a humorless smile. "You're not getting that either." "The peace?" I placed an envelope on the table. "Inside is your flight confirmation and the court appointment schedule. If you want your own legal counsel, that's your right. But don't even think about using my name for anything else. I've frozen my identity with all 3 credit bureaus. Law enforcement's been notified. They're not pressing charges, but they're aware." Her eyes widened. "You already reported me." I nodded. "I'm not suing, but I'm not getting hurt again either. Cross the line again, and this becomes a criminal case, not a divorce file." She didn't argue, just smiled, tired and small. "You always planned everything so well, and I really thought I could outplay you." I nodded. "You were brilliant. You just used your intelligence for the wrong thing. We sat in silence for a few minutes. The restaurant music faded into a soft instrumental. I stood first. I hope you find peace. Sarah? She looked up, as if about to say something, then simply shook her head. Goodbye. John. I walked away, crossing the curved wooden bridge back to the villa. Each step felt light, like I had finally laid down a weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. The next morning, I flew back to Seattle. 3 weeks later, Robert called. The hearing had been set. Sarah didn't appeal, didn't push back. According to her lawyer, she'd left Seattle. No forwarding address, no online trace. Some said she moved to the East Coast. Others said she was finding herself. I didn't care. I went back to our old apartment and packed my things. I didn't keep much, just the coffee maker, a few books, and the paring knife she used to chop carrots on those quiet, faraway nights. I brought them to my new place, a smaller, brighter apartment, higher up, overlooking Lake Union. I wasn't afraid of being alone, and I wasn't afraid of being deceived again. I'd learned how to live with doubt without letting it kill my belief in everything else, in my work, in my friends, and in myself. Because in the end, the only thing I truly reclaimed wasn't money, or a home, or even my reputation. It was the power to tell my story. I'd let it slip once. Next time, I won't.